Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about my favorite YA books and YA series. I don't usually read YA. I used to read a lot of it like 3 or 4 years ago, and then I found other books I liked and I just kept going that route. But these are books that, when I read them, I felt they were very different, and I just really enjoyed them. They're all very different in their own way. The first book I'm going to talk about is Jellicle Road by Melina Marchetta, and this was the book that I talked about in my books I'd like to reread video. And that's when I said if you guys wanted me to talk about my favorite YA books, and some of you said that you would like to hear about that, so that's why I'm doing this video. And I didn't talk too much about this book in that video, and I'm not going to talk about it too much in this video either. Like I said in the video, this book is not one that you really want to go into knowing, too much about. It's going to really ruin it for you, I feel, because the magic of this book is discovering the past with the main character, Taylor. Taylor was left by her mother on Jellicle Road, and since then she's been growing up kind of in a group home, and something happens that drives Taylor to figure out her mother's past, and really she wants to know why she was left behind. So Taylor goes on this journey where she's figuring out how her life ended up the way it did, and she also discovers how a group of 4 people had an impact on her life and she didn't even know it. So the book is going to tell you everything you need to know. It's going to piece it together for you little by little. So I would not read too much about this book before going in. All I can say is it's a beautiful story, memorable characters, amazing writing. Melina Marchetta is just a master at creating characters that you care about, and also just writing a sentence that makes you feel something. And so this book is one of those books that I really, really loved. It surprised me. One of the few 5-star reads in the in the YA genre, and also a book that I don't want to read too much because I don't want it to lose its magic. And I highly recommend this one. I don't really hear about this one too much, but it's one of my favorites. The next book I want to talk about is a series of 2 books, a duology, called Eon by Alison Goodman. This is a story about a boy named Eon who hopes to become a Dragoneye, which is an apprentice that learns about dragon magic. The only thing is that Eon is actually Iona, the 16-year-old girl who is trying to become a Dragoneye. And Dragoneyes are never females, they're forbidden to participate in being an apprentice, and so if Iona is discovered, she could be killed, and that's kind of the twist of this story. We follow Iona through her training, her apprenticeship, and the different struggles that she goes through as she's trying to hide who she really is. I really enjoy this series. There's a huge mystery involved in the story where Iona kind of discovers an old diary and learns a little bit more about dragon magic than she otherwise would. There's a little bit of romance, although it's kind of in the background of the story, and there's a lot of action. Also, the aspect of dragon magic is really, really cool to read about. It's kind of tied into ancient Asian myth and legend, and it all kind of comes together beautifully, I feel. Alison Goodman can write an amazing action scene where not really a lot is going on. Most of it is visual rather than physical, but you feel like you're there watching Iona go through all of this and experiencing this. A lot of what we are reading about is her experiences as she's doing things, as she's practicing magic, as she's learning about the different things about dragon magic and becoming an apprentice. It also has an interesting ending. I was not expecting the ending, and I was kind of worried about it because at the end of the second book, you really become involved with these characters, and Iona, you don't want her to be discovered. You're afraid that, if she is discovered, what's going to happen? She has to make a brave decision, and you don't know how it's going to end up. So I was really worried that the ending was not going to be a satisfying one, but it really was to me. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend this series if you love fantasy, if you love dragons, character development, because we really watch Iona grow up into her own person, and it was really interesting to read about. It's such a cool story, and I hope a lot more people pick it up, at least in the library. Give it a shot because I really enjoyed it. The next series I want to talk about is the Unwind series by Neal Shusterman. I only have book 4 with me because I bought the first book in a different edition, and then I read the other 2 quickly on my Kindle, and then I ran out to buy the 4th one, and I have this edition here from, I think this is a UK edition. This is the last book. There are 4 books in the series, and I've talked a little bit about Unwind before, but since this is a YA dystopian novel, this is the perfect video to talk a little bit more about it. This is a dystopian series set in the not too distant future. In this world, kids between the ages of 13 and 17 can be unwound if they are either too difficult to deal with, have issues with the justice system, constantly in juvie or things like that, or are wards of the state. There's also other reasons that you would have someone be unwound, but those are the main ones. I don't want to go too much into what unwinding actually is because it's a lot more complicated than it sounds. Unwinding is part of the culture. It's an accepted thing in society. And what's really cool about this series is that Neal Shusterman is going to explain to you and kind of show you how it got to be this way. Unwinding also makes a lot of people a lot of money, and it's very difficult to get rid of. And that's the challenge that our main characters have. The story is told from many different points of view, but there are 4 main characters that we kind of keep up with throughout the 4 books. Together they inspire a rebellion that they never really wanted to be a part of, but their actions and the fact that they want to survive kind of push them into the forefront of this rebellion against unwinding. What I loved the most about this series was how Neal Shusterman used different points of view to really give you a full picture. The series is very fast-paced. There's a lot of action and a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes, but there's also a lot of heart as well, and that's what I really took the most out of this series, was how Neal Shusterman was able to give all of these characters this humanity that sticks with you, where you really want them to make it, you want unwinding to be completely eradicated, and you kind of question how our society would be with this in practice. Neal Shusterman is kind of explaining to you over time how unwinding became such a common practice. He includes different news articles, advertisements, things like that in the book that kind of give you this perspective of the culture that kind of accepts unwinding now, and the different ways that unwinding is profitable to certain people, and what is the justification for why they use it. Another thing that stuck out to me was the character development. All 4 main characters go through a huge change, and they all grow into their own person in different ways, and that was really interesting to read about. I really enjoyed it. If you like dystopian series, if you like action, then I really recommend the Unwind series. The next book I want to talk about is a fantasy book. It's part of a series, but I kind of think of it as a standalone book, and that is Graceling by Kristin Cashore. In this world, there are a select group of people who are born with special abilities, and these are called Gracelings. Our main character, Katsa, is graced with the ability to kill, so her uncle, who is the king, kind of uses her as an assassin to do his bidding. Early on in the book, while she's on another job, she meets another Graceling named Poe, and her life kind of changes. I found this very refreshing. It was very different than I thought it would be. When I was reading it and Katsa meets Poe at the beginning of the book, I thought it would just be your typical romance, but it actually focuses more on Katsa, her discovering a little bit more about her grace, and how she's dealing with the different issues that are happening around the kingdom that are affecting Gracelings. We really see her mature and grow throughout the book, and she's also kind of a feminist, which is very refreshing to read about when it comes to YA. She's independent, brave, and very skilled at what she does, but she also has a big heart. So I really enjoyed this book. I read the other two in the series, but they didn't come close to this one for me. Maybe because Katsa and Poe are not a part of those other two books, and they're just such great characters in and of themselves. But I really just recommend you pick the first one. Like I said, Graceling could be a standalone book. It has kind of a very solid ending, and you kind of have like this view of what the future could be for Katsa, and it's very bright and you feel happy for her. So I thought it was a satisfying ending and a really refreshing read for a female main character who is a badass and also has a big heart and deals with actual issues and problems, you know? So I really recommend that one if you like fantasy series with great female heroines. Definitely pick up Graceling. The last book I want to talk about is Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I don't own this book. I read this on my Kindle, but I am definitely going to be picking up a physical copy. I think I read this book 2 years ago, and I sometimes still think about this main character. This is a story about August, who is born with a deformity. He's been homeschooled for most of his life, but he really wants to go to a public school. He convinces his parents to let him go, and the rest of the book we're kind of going along with August as he encounters all these different people. What really made this book such a special book for me was August as a character. We are inside of his head the entire time. As he interacts with other people, you get this very different perspective from August's point of view of the whole exchange, and it breaks your heart how he deals with his deformity, how he sees himself, how he deals with his family life, his school life, making friends, and it's just such a different narrator. It's one of those instances where we don't know how it is for other people unless we're walking in their shoes, and I applaud R.J. Palacio for creating the character of August and having us be inside of his head and see the world differently like he does. August is such a kind person, someone who you grow to love, and you root for him and you want to protect him. He's definitely a memorable character and he will stick with you, and I think for a good reason. So if you really love heartwarming characters, very sweet storytelling, and a challenging read, then I highly recommend this book. I do have to warn you, it might make you cry at parts because you do get attached to August and he does go through some very difficult situations, but I felt like they were a necessary part to the story, and all of those experiences really shape August as a person. Even though it's technically a children's book, it doesn't really read like one. R.J. Palacio is very careful about being sensitive to the subject and creating some really realistic characters and situations. So it doesn't feel like it's a subject that's glossed over at all. And I really appreciate that she, like I said, decided to write a book about this, and also the way that she executed it. I really do think she nailed it, and I highly recommend it. And that's it. Those are my top YA books and series. Let me know in the comments if there are any YA books that are kind of underhyped and deserve more attention, because I'm kind of on the hunt for different YA books. Also, don't forget to leave your questions in my previous video. I have a link down to it below. Leave any question you would like and I'll be answering those very soon. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!